have the opportunity.
Respond. I want to ensure that Muskegon wage. At the same time, purchasing a house has become increasingly difficult as more and more housing stock flows into short-term rental market to support the growing tourist industry. We need dishwashers, gas station clerks, and hotel housekeepers, and people need to be able to live where they work, particularly for lower earning jobs. People cannot commute for minimum wage.
The time is up. Thank you. Ms. Coleman.
Thank you. My name is Rachel Corman, and I'm running for commission in the city of Muskegon because I trust Muskegon. This community is my passion, and I believe our prosperity should continue, not come to an end. I've seen firsthand the impact that collaborative partnerships between our residents, the private sector, and local government can have on increasing the quality of life accessible to residents. These collaborations not only impact physical structures in our community, but the attitudes and lifestyle of people that live here. As we move forward together, we need to continue to take care of the assets and investments in our existing infrastructure in places around the city that the community values. While development has brought and will continue to bring new residents to our city, we need to do what we can to support existing residents to stay where they are. I want to help work to promote communication between city staff and residents. While there are subjective issues residents genuinely have, our city is ahead of the curve on so much and needs to do a better job communicating these successes to its residents. No resident should feel left behind. I also want to work to maintain water access for all residents while balancing environmental and social sustainability. What we're seeing in real time is an exciting development unfold in NIMS with the Adeline Point development project, but what's more important to me, what I'm hearing is so important to residents in the city, is that our city has been insistent that public access remain on Muskegon Lake. Equity and inclusion in a booming economy are not exclusive. Rather, a strong economy will foster more equity and inclusion. Look forward to the discussion tonight and learning more about the other candidates. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thorne. So,
Thank you, Judge Pittman, and thanks to the Beat for hosting us tonight. So I'm excited to be here and tell you a little bit why I'm running again for Muskegon City Commission. I think many here really love Muskegon and think it's a wonderful place to be. I moved here 18 years ago and didn't know anybody in this town, and started getting involved and kind of fell in love with it. There's great people. It's a great geographic setting. There was so much potential. I mean, if you look around, there's things that you could roll your sleeves up with and get involved in. So I got involved in the Nelson Neighborhood Improvement Association, and I kind of got involved in downtown Muskegon development. I was interested in the topic, so I got a master's of public administration at Grand Valley State University and got working in downtown Muskegon development. In 2011, I got an opportunity to move to Muskegon Community College to have a job there in public information, and did that. And now I'm serving as the Dean of Academic Affairs. I work a lot with companies, but also students and people who are looking for training to get connected to better opportunities. Since I was at the college, I was like, now's kind of a good time I was not as much involved in city affairs, and I said that was a good time to run for office, so I did that, and I was elected in 2013, and I've been serving ever since. I'm really passionate about moving the city forward, and I think that there's been a lot of progress over the last 8 years in that regard. Like I said, there was a lot of potential, and we're realizing some, and we have a long ways to go for sure, but it's been exciting and an honor to be part of it. I have distinct relevant experience in leadership roles. I've worked on a lot of big projects at the college and in city government, so I'm looking forward to keeping that momentum going if I get reelected. I'm looking forward to hearing more and talking more tonight.
thank you, sir. So let's start where you left off a bit, talking about downtown Muskegon development. And first question is to you, Ms. Thorne. What is your opinion of the inclusion that you see as part of what this downtown Muskegon development has come to look like?
Well, as someone who graduated in Muskegon County 2010, not too long ago.
What school?
I went to Oak Ridge High School, grew up in Eggleston Township, East Muskegon, yeah. I will say I was someone who, like many of my peers at that time, couldn't wait to get out of Muskegon fast enough, and not being in the city, just Muskegon being Muskegon County. Anyway, so the path that brought me back, though, I think the development in downtown Muskegon was a critical component in investment in the city and future growth in the city of Muskegon. The downtown we all enjoy today, all being all of Muskegon County, it's not the same downtown that I grew up with. And it does not look the same as it did when I grew up. As far as inclusion in downtown, I think we have tremendous opportunity to be more inclusive, and that's something throughout this campaign many residents have voiced concern and enthusiasm for. So I think knowing that in conversations with our commissioners and city government, there needs to be more intention to grow that inclusion. But from what we're seeing so far, new businesses coming, particularly towards the end of Western Avenue, that still needs a little love. I think we're going to get there, and so that's really exciting to me.
Well, how do you increase this inclusion? You say that there's opportunity for it, and I would certainly agree. I imagine everybody in this room would agree. Question is what are you going to do to help bring about that opportunity and make it a reality?
I think The opportunity there is that we need help from our residents to benchmark how we measure true inclusiveness. I think what I think is inclusive maybe isn't the same as even what Dan or Rebecca think. But we need to lean on our neighbors and the people we're hoping to represent to tell us what they're looking for. And then as commissioners, I think bring that back to opportunities as people come to the city hoping to be a part of that community. I think we need to hold them to those benchmarks.
Thank you. Steven, you've been part of this since 2000, you left in 2000.
Well, I've downtown development since 2005.
Are you satisfied?
No, I'm not satisfied. I think there's a lot of opportunity. I can remember in 2005, before the streets were rebuilt, and the mall was just a recent memory. This was a concern. I think it was part of the Imagine Muskegon vision was a diverse downtown. I remember being part of a lot of meetings with the Downtown Muskegon Development Corporation, who had diversity and inclusion as a goal. It's really, really hard work, and I think there's been certainly efforts, and there certainly is room for improvement. I would say that it's been a priority, and I feel though from the city side, there's so many things you can do. I mean, there's, the power of the local government is limited, but should be used in ways that are appropriate. They can come alongside developers and business owners. And I believe that that's been a value at the city for quite some time. In the 8 years, I think that the commission has been unanimous on this idea that we should promote and foster that. I think that staff have been given pretty strong directives. It's in our current goals for this year to get more diversity in businesses that are up and coming in downtown. I think a couple examples of that are working with Mr. Ferguson and Brianna Scott on the development of the old Ameribank building. I know that the city staff have worked hard with Jonathan Jeltz and his group to get the Motu wine bar going. I remember when I was working on Main Street, and we helped to bring Valley or from Oriental Market to 3rd Street, and she's been there for 18 years. I think that there's been a real value in Muskegon, which I embrace and would love to see more fully realized. So I think there's definitely things to do, but it's definitely top of mind and something we need to keep accomplishing.
Thank you. Ms. St. Clair.
I'm going to ask you to repeat the question so that I'm sure I'm answering what you're saying.
Certainly. Question pertaining to this Congress. It's pertaining to the issue of the downtown Muskegon development that has occurred over these years and the sufficiency, if you will, of the diversity and inclusion regarding mix of those who are fully participating. I was asking, are we satisfied with that? Do you have ideas about how to address
Okay, thank you. I would say the downtown development has currently been a pretty significant failure when it comes to issues of inclusion. It is not anywhere representative of our community. Muskegon is a very diverse community that is so segregated. I've talked to a lot of people since I've been campaigning, and a consistent response that I've heard is, how do you feel about what's going on downtown? I don't go down there. There's nothing down there for me. And I've heard that again and again and again talking to people of color. White folks think the downtown is great. People of color, not so much. We're not providing them with services and experiences that they find value in, and we're also not providing them with opportunities to provide those goods and services to their peers. I know we can have all of the best aspirational goals, but if we're not willing to put our money where our mouth is and go out and actively help people get into business, it doesn't matter what the goals are. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. There are almost no people of color in business downtown. You know, we talk about things that are coming, which is wonderful, and I'm really glad to see that there is some active development coming. But there are ways that we can bring people in. There are supports that we can provide. I know I've heard stories of people wanting to come into business downtown and finding door after door closed. That's not how we get an inclusive community. We can do better. There could be specific grants, there could be specific mentorship programs, and I am not aware that any of those things are happening. So while the downtown is a beautiful and lovely place, it's not for everyone yet.
Thank you.
Don't want to respond too long, but I think it's not quite fair to say that there's not been any efforts. I know recently the Black Business Expo was held, and the city was a big partner in bringing that to the convention center. There's events that are downtown, and I see, you know, there are folks from different backgrounds who are attending those events. So I think that there's definitely more to do. And I think that some of those things that you're talking about are very difficult, and people have been working for quite some time. There are grants that are available. Ed Garner with the SBDC has been on this for 20 years trying to work alongside businesses. City staff have done the best that they can to work with chalet owners and people who go to the farmer's market and the flea market. There are numerous attempts to try and foster a business. I don't think it's enough. I agree that there's not enough there. So we need to work on it, but I think that it's not genuine to say that people don't come downtown at all.
Thank you. I would just close the thought here with the idea that the statement was made that we're 18 years into this. That means that there's an entire group of people who were born and graduated high school, and you can count on one hand the number of minority vendors, entrepreneurs, business owners, service providers that you can find up and down that street. At some point, wanting to do well has to turn into actually doing. Let's talk about the relationship that you believe should exist between the city and the city school system. Mr. why don't you start?
Sure, that's a great question. I think that our fates are intertwined. I know Judge Pittman, we served together on the school bond issue last year. There was a community committee of working towards passing the bond, developing what that would be, and I think that was a great collaboration of the folks involved in the city and the school system. And right now we're seeing the fruits of that with the beginning of the construction at Muskegon High School, and the football stadium's been completed. I agree on this front as well. More needs to be done. We need a healthy school system in order to have a healthy city. There's a lot that we can't control in terms of school of choice and per pupil funding and a lot of other issues. But we need to work together creatively to keep kids that are in our city attending our schools. They have a great history and a great future. I think that there's been stops and starts with how the city and the schools have worked together. We definitely cooperate on things like the sewer improvements that are being done now. But I think we need to look more in some of the goals that were set up for 2020 2021, youth education was a major focus of that. So I think that the city is aware that we need to work with our youth to raise up the most prosperous generation we can. So I'd like to continue that and continue working through the goals that the city has.
What are the goals that the city has?
The main one has to do with getting, and the Muskegon Public Schools, particularly MCEC, has an idea of the city as a school, so they're really trying to work to get youth incorporated in the workforce. And I think from the city's perspective, that's like understanding like public works, fire safety, public safety in the police department. There's a lot of opportunities where we need talent. You know, there's a lot of Ms. St. Clair already mentioned there's a shortage of people who are going into roles. The city's no different. We are struggling to get people that are talented and can fill the positions for things to keep public services going for our residents. So that's the main issue right now, is to try to partner with the schools to get students on that track.
Thank you. Ms. St. Clair, you want to speak about what you believe the relationship between city schools should look like?
Sure. Many of you know my husband is on the Muskegon Public Schools Board, so I have a close relationship with the school. I have 2 children who graduated from, actually 3, because I also fostered my niece, who graduated from Muskegon Public Schools also. I have a great love for Muskegon Public Schools, and I also have a grave concern for how the school system is faring. I live in Lakeside, and I walk around my neighborhood, and I see in the spring, school after school sign out in front of people's houses. Congratulations to my graduate from Mona Shores, from North Muskegon, from Fruitport. And the tide does not seem to be stemming with that. I think that we have the potential to do some incredible things in the city, and it is not going to be successful if we can't get the school system to a level that people who come here will put their children in the school. And I think that the city has a great deal of power and opportunity to assist the public school system in coming to a point that people feel comfortable enrolling their kids and keeping them there. Muskegon, I know I've mentioned, is a very segregated community, and you see that sharply in the school systems. I think that, as Dan said, I think that, a school and city collaboration on a lot of levels could help to increase recreational programming for kids, to help them to stay in the school system, to help them to learn to give back to the community. One of the things that I've heard a lot talking to people is we need after school stuff, we need programming. We used to have co-op when I was a kid, and I could go to school for half of the day, and then I could go work at the city clerk's office, shuffling papers for the afternoon, and I learned a lot. Those opportunities aren't available anymore, and we have unheard of opportunity right now with the ARPA dollars and with the energy that we have around growth and change and all of the new people coming into the city, that we could be doing some amazing collaborations.
Thank you. Ms. Gorman, you want to address that issue?
Yeah, I think I echo what we've heard from the other candidates, but there is huge opportunity in working together with our school system to make sure that school system is a recruitment tool to get people to want to live in the city of Muskegon. We're pretty proud of some friends we know that moved into the city specifically to send their kids to Muskegon Public Schools because of the opportunities that their former school systems were not as inclusive, and they want their children to be well-rounded students with a better perspective of the world. I think it is important to remember that, particularly for my friends my age, to learn that, Board of trustees in Muskegon Public Schools are also elected officials, but there's no reason why. In our city, with our reputation of ingenuity, we can't come up with some creative opportunities to work together. So I look forward to those collaborations and doing what we can to make this next generation of big grads as proud as the generations before them to say they're graduates of Muskegon Public Schools.
Anything in specific that you're looking to do once you become city commissioner?
I mean, I think initially just meeting all the members of that Board of Education is a big first start, and I'm not sure that's been done by some.
All right, thank you very much. Let's shift gears again here for a second. Let's talk about your position on the police presence in this city, in our neighborhoods, and the funding issues that are attached to that police presence. You know, we're coming out of a period where the idea that the funding streams and the usual models that have been utilized to fund the police should be given some reconsideration. What's your position on that issue? And believe me, I am not talking about this ridiculous defund the police thing that people have created to deflect from an important discussion. Ms. Sinclair, why don't you start with that if you have a thought about how funding and the model for funding of police should be reconfigured, if you think so, and if you don't, of course.
Of course I do. I would love to see a world where when you call 911 because your loved one is having a mental health emergency, it's not the police that come to your door. It is a mental health professional that has the skills and the tools and the knowledge to help your loved one either regulate themselves so that they don't need more care or help to connect them with the care that they need. At this point, when you call 911 because your loved one is having a breakdown, the police are going to come, and they are not equipped anywhere nearly enough to be the one to respond to that. I had the opportunity to go through a training called Cop Culture about 2 weeks ago, and I spent 2 days with a variety of representatives from area police departments talking about how the police department and mental health providers intersect and how they don't intersect. And it was really enlightening to me how little education they have in providing mental health intervention or response. It was like 8 hours total out of their entire time in the police academy. And I know as a mental health worker, we have, on a daily basis, we have people who are in crisis that somebody calls the police and the police come and respond. And sometimes they do a great job and sometimes they don't. But they are consistently not trained in how to do a good job. So we set them up for failure. I also have a lot of concerns about police in the school system. I know many of the school systems don't have mental health workers in the school, but they have police officers in there. So if there is a fight or an altercation, there's a good chance that that youth is going to pick up charges. And then they get caught in the system, and then they get, sucked down a path that nobody wants them to go to. And much of that conflict comes from preventable things that if they had access to resources, those conflicts wouldn't happen.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Gorman.
Sorry. This is a big, tough issue that I certainly don't have all the answers to. But I'm curious, as we move forward to have a discussion about the return of neighborhood police officers, especially as rapidly as our city is growing. And as we look for incentive opportunities to get people to move into the city, I'd love to see an officer living in the neighborhood that they're serving, building real relationships with their actual physical neighbors around them, to get to know. So if they have a neighbor that maybe does, if we're talking about, have some mental health issues that need to be addressed, if they were called on scene, that they would know their neighbor and know how they're going to respond to certain things. But again, to just, as people, I think there is an answer in community-centered law enforcement. And I think that could be part of the solution. But as far as the funding, I didn't quite catch, Judge Pittman, what the specific question was.
Well, I think what seems to be the prevailing thought is that the funding models that are utilized traditionally to fund police should be re-examined to determine whether or not that's the most effective use of those resources versus the potential for other services that are police connected, but somehow seem to not receive any attention or resource and leave people in a worse position than they were before the police were called.
Yeah, I can't speak to the specifics of that, but, I think we all can agree that we hear from our residents that there needs to be more services provided, and how that gets to commission is their job, so it's something, I know I would commit to if elected.
Thank you. Okay.
Sure. Thanks for the question. It's definitely an important issue in our city. I think probably the single biggest expense out of the city general fund, if you would look at it like by group of employee, goes to our police officers. There's sworn officers, and it's a big department. So in terms of the funding, so the funding comes from the general fund, and I think that's definitely something the community values is public safety. Now, how we spend that money, I think that there's probably some ways to look at different ways to do it. I do think that the idea that's been discussed about focusing on mental health is a good one. I know I've asked Chief Lewis about that quite a few times, and I think that there's becoming more awareness in the law enforcement community that there may be ways to incorporate better mental health training or services or work. It's my understanding that work is ongoing with Health West and other mental health providers in the area. So I wouldn't discourage that. I'm not 100%, I don't think I would commit to lowering the number of sworn officers. I think that people want to make sure that there's safety in the community, and definitely a police presence helps with that. On the other side, there's been a long history where that's not been well received in the community, or not been a good two-way street in all communities, particularly communities of color. And I think that the police, law enforcement community in general needs to do a better job addressing that. I think that's been an issue in Muskegon for quite some time. I know with, we have a Citizens Police Review Board that was started in, I think, the 80s out of an unfortunate incident that happened. There's been other incidents that have occurred. I don't think that by any stretch it's perfect. But I think that the police department, and I know the city commission is the current folks at City Hall, are committed to a better police community response. They've been very active with the Social Justice Commission to work with pastors and others in the African American community to come up with ways to get better relationships. They've done a lot of activities with youth, like the sailing with, or going on the boat, and different activities like that. So in terms, to answer the question, basically, I think that the funding does need to be looked at, and the police service, as we have it currently standing in the city of Muskegon, should always be adapting and responding to citizens' needs. So I would encourage, looking at it every year as we decide and work with the police to how they see themselves going and improving, and getting input from our community as how to do that, to work together on that project.
Thank you. Just want you all to please realize that you all have the decision-making power as to how the city's resources are going to be allocated across budget to budget to budget to budget. At some point, somebody's going to want to hear from you folks the idea of what happens with those budgets. The conversations are good, the intentions are great, but the idea is that if you're not getting the service for the money that is being provided, maybe you need to look at a different point of allocation. You probably don't hear that again. So we have a few minutes left, and we have a few questions from the audience. I'm going to take a couple of these. And there are at least two questions that address this particular issue, and I'll read one of them. There appears to be a strong bent towards gentrification in Muskegon. The question is, what comment or statement can you make that challenges this thought? The idea being that I'm assuming the idea being that gentrification is not necessarily something that this particular person is interested in. What do you feel about the idea of gentrification occurring in the city of Muskegon? Why don't we start with you, Commissioner?
Sure. As I said earlier, I moved into Nelson neighborhood right by Muskegon High School 18 years ago. And I remember working with Neighborhood Investment Corporation on a resident committee, one of the first years I lived here, and gentrification was a concern then, and it's a concern now. I think that in order to have a healthy community, we need folks of all incomes living together in that community. At the point where we were 18 years ago, I don't think a market rate house had been constructed in downtown Muskegon for some time before that. And I don't think a market rate house was constructed for quite a few years after that. And that wasn't really a healthy community in terms of a mix of housing price points and people living together. I think that gentrification is a concern, definitely a concern now. There have been market rate housing starts. So the issue is, how do we work together to address the issue? Downtown Muskegon and Muskegon, the city of Muskegon is quite large and has, certainly there's not a need to push people out of the city if that's a definition of gentrification. There's lots of vacant lots. There's lots of ways to help people stay in the community where they live currently, or move to a community where they would like to live in the city of Muskegon. So I believe that we do need to be cognizant of it and work very diligently to help people stay in communities where they were born and raised and would like to stay. There's some structural reasons that could make that more possible or less possible. I think we need to work on those. So at the root of it is, in 10 or 15 years, if I'm still living at 154 Campus Avenue, I'd like to be part of a neighborhood where that vision is more completely realized, of people of all incomes living beside each other, all different kinds of groups, and learning from each other. And so I would, I'm committed and believe that we're working towards that vision.
Thank you. Ms. Gorman?
7 years ago, when I had just finished college and got a job in downtown Muskegon, I was fully employed, looking for an apartment to live in Nelson neighborhood, and there was not much available to me. I did find something at the Hamilton Apartments, but that experience is not lost on me, and it's something I've been reminded of during this campaign, of the frustration of having a full-time job and still not finding what a market rate apartment was for a single woman living in downtown Muskegon. I think the housing available downtown and in the city of Muskegon has improved since then, but I definitely hear what's being asked in this audience tonight, what's being asked and conversed with residents in the city of Muskegon is we do have people that have been in the city for generations and they want to see their families continue to be in the city for generations. And I think that's what makes our city great. I think we do grow with new neighbors coming into the city, and I've heard from a lot of residents about opportunities to make sure those new neighbors know the neighborhoods they're moving into, to make sure it's a good fit. So, I don't have the answer. I think there's not one person on city commission now or someone running for commission that's in favor of gentrification. And it's something that I think everyone knows is super important and wants to work together to find a solution. But again, I think we need to continue to hear from our residents about what that looks like and what that means to them as well.
Thank you. So,
Gentrification is happening and it accompanies revitalization. I don't think that you can have one without the other. I think what we can do is to be mindful about making sure that we take deliberate action to keep Muskegon to be a community for everyone. I think if we are not careful, segregation will worsen. And we need to take active steps to prevent that. I've heard we have a lot of low-income housing in Muskegon, and maybe we do. However, Amazon apartments used to be low-income and now it's market rate. And Nelson Place has been bought, and in 3 years that will be market rate. And a lot of people live there. Where are they going? Some of them will find opportunities in other low-income housing in the core city, but not all of them. And we're seeing a trend of developers getting tax incentives to build low-income housing for a limited time. And then at the end of that time period, it becomes market rate. And I don't know if that's a problem. It becomes a problem when we don't help people get out of situations where they require low-income housing, but there are some folks that always will. Seniors are always going to be income limited. People on disability are always going to be income limited. So I've heard a lot of narrative of, well, we just need to help them get out of poverty and then they won't need this. But there's always going to be multiple levels of income, and we're always going to have to provide housing for people across all age ranges. I think that we have to make investments as a community and make sure that we are really being mindful about the least of these. We've spent a lot of money and a lot of energy bringing in market rate housing, which was needed. To my colleague's point, there has not been much new build in Muskegon, and housing stock is, it's not gonna live forever. But we have also a need to make sure that we are maintaining housing for the entire range of the city, and we have to be really deliberate as we go forward that that's happening.
thank you. All right, well, we're coming to a close. I'd love to be able to go through all these questions, but these folks would have to be here probably another hour. But that certainly speaks to the interest. And a good number of those questions were about housing, the attention that's being paid to downtown versus the neighborhoods. Those are just some thoughts for you to take away from this. Why don't we close with this? Each of you take 2 minutes, if you would, and speak about what you believe are the 2 most pressing issues facing the city and your approach to addressing those pressing issues as your closing statement. Why don't we start with Ms.
I think the most pressing issue facing the city that encompasses everything else is just our extreme rapid population growth that we're seeing and how we're feeling that in all the topics we've talked about tonight. For good and for the bad, managing our city's growth is going to unite us or tear us apart. And so the solution to that, I think, I know we keep saying it, but it is our communication with our elected officials and working in partnership with our city staff. And I know it's easy to say that, but I think we all agree through this campaign, it's shocking how many residents don't feel like that communication is accessible to them. But that's also been a huge learning opportunity to learn the avenues that they do have to communicate with their city staff that works for them, with their elected officials that represent them.
All right, thank you. Commissioner.
Sure. 2 most pressing issues. We've talked about it. I think housing is one of the biggest issues. We're facing a market that prices are going up. There's many reasons for that. Building materials being one, but workforce being another. But we are struggling to, and this is a nationwide problem, to provide housing for everybody who needs it at a rate that they can afford. We, as front and center with that, is the American Rescue Plan dollars that, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I think housing's been identified as one of the key issues to address through that kind of transformational change that we can undertake at this point. I think that that's the pressing issue, and I think that we need to work. I know that it's been talked about a lot at city commission meetings, and it will continue to be, because it's a very difficult issue to unpack. But I feel like the places where the city can make the most impact are at the lower to the middle income range. That's where I think that the city should target its efforts. And I think that we have some amazing opportunities that, if done right, can really provide housing at that price point, and for folks looking in that market, that will keep folks in the city, will bring folks to the city of Muskegon, and will, as Rachel said, and I've been pointing out, the population of the city of Muskegon has been declining since 1950. So that's 70 years since we were at a population of 48,000. I think we have an amazing opportunity to kind of turn that corner and together realize a growing city if we provide the right housing. Second one is racial equity. I think that race is front and center in the city of Muskegon. It's the reason I think, when we came to Muskegon, we were excited because diversity is a great thing. And I think people want to see our country do better and understand that we failed in the past. And so we have opportunities at the local level to do that. So they may be limited. We're not the president of the United States, or have the full force of the Department of Justice. But I think that that's one thing that drew me into local government was a passion, seeing the diversity that we have, wanting to see it better realized. And over the years,
Your time is,
Okay.
time is up. I wanted you to be able to address a bit
Okay.
of what you thought the second pressing issue was.
that's great, thank you.
Ms. St. Clair.
The most pressing issue that comes to mind for me right now is mistrust and communication, disconnect in the community. I think that, I appreciate that this is a nonpartisan seat, and I don't think that we have to agree on everything to work together. I've come to understand that we may not agree on the means or the methods used, but most people want Muskegon to be successful. This means having hard conversations and finding the places where we can come together to move things forward. Most people want the same thing from their local government. They want transparency and accountability on how their tax dollars are spent. When they call 911, they want the appropriate emergency service to show up quickly with enough staff and good equipment to help them. They want clean, safe parks and well-maintained streets. They want to feel safe and welcome in their neighborhoods. But they also want a government that is responsive when they need help or have questions. And I don't see that people feel that they have that engagement and ability to dialogue with their commissioners. The second issue that I would say is, making sure that there's room for everyone and partnering with the residents and the commission. I know there's a lot of committees that you can serve on if you want to, and I know many of them are defunct, and I don't know how to get on one. I've never done that. But I think that we can build bridges to help people own their government. You elect who represents you, and you need to be able to feel like they are responsive and responsible to you. And I don't feel like we're doing as good as we can there. And, pie in the sky, maybe we'll never get everyone happy, but I think that we can get more people feeling like they know who to call, they know how to get their needs met, and they know how to access the services that their tax dollars are paying for.
Thank you. Right, well, ladies and gentlemen, this brings to a close the conversation amongst the City of Muskegon Commission candidates. Now, there's more, there are others who are running, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct. Jack Page.
Okay, all right. Well, folks, take notice of who showed up here to speak with you. I think that's very important. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Let's give them a round of applause. We're going to take about 5 minutes, and then we're going to begin with the City of Muskegon mayoral candidates. If you have questions, please write them out now and provide them to those who are picking them up now, as opposed to them coming in during the course of the actual conversation. We may be able to get to them. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for coming, Rachel. Great job.
Thank
Paul,
you
thanks for coming.
for
For having
having us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, very impressed moment.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, just put it back in the refrigerator. What else?
Yeah, no,
I didn't say it a whole lot.
well, Garvin he hadn't logged in.
He's not going to.
So that's I forwarded you the email.
Yeah.
He saw it, right?
He's not going to. We don't.
That's crazy,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah,
What's her? Oh, she won't go play.
no.
Well, I heard. Hey, what's wrong? You play basketball, right?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Let me let Paul know.
Get ready. That's Ken Johnson. He's running for mayor for the city of Muskegon. Okay, here we go.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to reconvene. Thank you for being back in the seats. And this segment is going to be a little shorter. This is the segment that involves, or should involve, the mayoral candidates for the city of Muskegon. And as you can see, there is one candidate here, that's Mr. Johnson, I want to make it clear that the Mayor Garland, was invited, of course, and was given the opportunity to appear virtually. There is a live stream set up for him to be able to appear virtually. And to this point, he has failed to log in and to be a part of this evening's proceedings. And of course, I'm an elected official. And as an elected official, I have to stand on my record. I have to stand on my record. I have to stand on my record everywhere I go. When I'm out amongst people, when I'm in Walmart, when I'm at the football game, or whatever else, my record goes along with me, and I don't fail to go where I choose to go. It is certainly, I think, important for those who want to be your leaders to be able to appear and answer your questions and respond and to stand on their record. And I say that not just for the fact that Mayor Garland is not present, but there will be others. In the city of Muskegon Heights portion coming up, there are those in the city of Muskegon portion coming up. Your vote is probably one of the most precious things that you own. It is hard fought, and especially for us as African Americans, it costs lives and it costs families and injury that will never be recompensed. And the least that should be expected of those who want to be your leaders is to step before you and speak on what it is that they believe they have to provide to you as leadership. And I just say that across the board, not towards anyone in specific, but if you want to be the leader, if you want my vote, show up. So the way I think we'll do this, Commissioner Johnson, is we'll give you the opportunity to make your opening statement. Take a couple minutes to do that. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and then we'll hear from you what you believe is important for people to know about what you think is most important to address from the mayor's seat for the city of Muskegon. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Honor. This segment may be a bit shorter, but it will not be any less substantive. Yes, so thank you, Your Honor. Said this segment may be shorter, but it won't be any less substantive. And thank you, Honorable Judge Gregory Pittman, for moderating tonight.
Thank you to Corinthians Baptist Church and Pastor Kai Guy for so graciously hosting this event, not just this event, but community events throughout the year, dealing with important matters. And thank you to 103.7 The Beat, PA, Big Rob, Lady Jane, and your entire team for organizing this. 103.7 The Beat is truly the people's station, and I'm so grateful for your contributions to our community. I'm Ken Johnson. I'm an at-large commissioner for the city of Muskegon and have served in that capacity for the past 8 years. I'm born and raised here in Muskegon. I grew up on the east side of the city in Shelton Park, and I am a proud K-12 graduate of Muskegon Public Schools, having attended Oakview Elementary, Steele Middle School, and Muskegon High School. Go Big Reds! And I'm proud that a fellow Big Red and a fellow class of 9-9 is in this room tonight. A couple of them are in this room tonight, actually, but one of whom is also running for office in our neighboring municipality, Muskegon Heights. So proud of you, Ebony. So after graduating high school, I went away to college in DC, where I studied international affairs and political science at George Washington University, and I decided to move back here a little over a decade ago, because Muskegon is my home, because I care about the people in this community. I recognize that we have such tremendous potential and intrinsic value here, value in the people, value in our natural resources, value in the cultural institutions here. And I've seen this community struggle, not only in my lifetime, but I've heard the stories from my forefathers. My family's been in this community for over a century. And so I'm well aware of Muskegon's ups and downs. And I wanted to be part of Muskegon's revitalization. When I went away to college, at the time, my mother was the generation that saw Muskegon as having its best days in the past. And she didn't see a whole lot of promise for me here. So when I went away to college, she had told me to stay out. She said, "You got out of Muskegon." She was like, "Your future, your promise lies elsewhere." But I knew better than that. And I came back here. And I moved back here a little over a decade ago, bought a house in the neighborhood, got involved with my neighborhood association, then decided to run for public office. And I am proud of the progress that we've been making in the 8 years that I've been on the commission. I'm proud of the development that's happening. I'm happy to see revitalization in some sections of our city. However, we need to be ensuring that progress and that development extends to all corners of our city, and that the benefits thereof extend to the full spectrum of our citizenry. And so I'm running for mayor of Muskegon to empower our residents, to champion progressive policies, to support our small businesses, and to promote good governance. And fundamental to good governance to me is ensuring that public resources and opportunities are shared fairly and equitably.
All right, thank you. My first question to you is going to be a very simple question. I forgot to ask it of the other candidates. If you're elected, will you commit today to returning to this forum and stand on your record of service if you choose to run for re-election in 4 years?
Absolutely.
All right, it's on the record. On the record. So if you become mayor, we expect you back here in front of 103.7B.
It won't have to be 4 years to get me back in this room.
All right, excellent. So one of the questions that's been presented from the audience is, what powers does a mayor have to lead in a community like the city of Muskegon? And what powers would you wish you had as mayor?
So we are, in the city of Muskegon, a commission manager type of government. There are basically 3 types of municipal government in the state of Michigan. One is which is a strong mayor system. It's an elected mayor who serves as the manager, the chief executive of the city. And we have a weak mayor system, and then we have a commissioner council manager system. And that's what we have here. And that's where you elect a board of representatives who provide supervision and oversight to the city manager. They hire a city manager. The city manager is the chief administrator and runs the city day to day and is responsible for executing the vision and the goals and the directives issued by the city commission. And so the city commission it's very important that the city commission is being very proactive in engaging our community in meaningful ways, not just lip service. We don't need lip service. We need meaningful engagement. We need to be proactive in informing our residents and soliciting feedback from our residents and ensuring our residents are part of a process of co-creation so they can have ownership of their government and what's happening in the community around them. The mayor has special responsibility though. The mayor is the chair of the commission. So it sets the tone and tenor and the cadence of our meetings and how we proceed as an elected body and helping to facilitate that we are working collaboratively, but also a special responsibility that we are following our own policies and that the processes are being followed properly. And policy might seem a little boring to some people, or wonkish. However, it's very important. We work to create these policies, and then it's very important that we actually follow those policies. For instance, we have an economic development revolving loan fund, and there's a policy that's tied to that and how you use those funds. And that fund in that policy specifically says that it should be used to support locally sited businesses with a special emphasis on women and minority entrepreneurs. But you know where that money went last year? We had over $1 million in there. 950,000, that's overextended at this point. $950,000 in that fund went to 3 entities owned by people that don't live in this city and are not in that category of being women or minorities either. So the mayor has a special responsibility, I believe, in ensuring that our policies are being followed and supporting the people in our community.
So let's go a little further with that. There was a number of questions and concern about the neighborhoods versus the attention that's being paid to the downtown area, which we're glad for, obviously. What are you going to do as mayor to address and talk about the equities and the inclusions of the neighborhoods and people who live in those neighborhoods getting the attention that is rightfully deserved?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I am proud and excited about the development that's happening downtown. It is long overdue that we see that revitalization, but it must extend to all corners of our city. The east side, south side, west side, they need TLC just like our downtown. And I will continue doing what I've done for the past 8 years, which is go into our neighborhoods, speak with our members of our neighborhood association, attend our community events. That's why I have the backing of a majority of our neighborhood association executives, because I've been doing that work in our community, making sure they're aware of what's happening at City Hall and getting the information from them about their positions and helping them to be engaged and bringing them into governance. And, you know, beyond that, making sure they're aware of resources too. So one thing that I've done, like for instance, when we were talking about how do we have downtown be more diverse, there are a number of different ways we can do that in terms of economic opportunity development downtown. You know, one of which is using our economic development funds the way that they're supposed to be intended, you know, first of all. But second of all, what I had done in the past is, you know, there was Juneteenth celebrations at Smith Ryerson. And so I took a stack of applications for vendorships at our farmers market, at our chalets downtown that were heavily discounted, and I passed them out individually and said, hey, do you know about this opportunity? Do you know about this opportunity? Same thing when we went to Buy Black Weekend in Muskegon Heights. Thank you, Jennifer Ross and others for helping to organize that and making that possible. But I heard from the vendors at that was like, why don't we see anyone from downtown here? You know, inviting us to, by downtown, I mean the city of Muskegon. Why are we not seeing anyone from the city of Muskegon here, inviting us to opportunities to participate in the growth and development of downtown? And that's a very good question. And so it's about connections. It's about sharing those resources and doing it fairly and equitably.
All right, thank you. So we spoke in the commissioner's portion of this evening's occurrences to the idea of the police presence and funding issues regarding police in the city of Muskegon. What's your position? What are your thoughts? You've been a commissioner for now 8 years. What are your thoughts about how that should transpire in the future under your mayoral leadership?
A number of things, one of which is bolstering our community policing and making sure that our community police officers stay in the communities they're supposed to serve. One thing that I've heard from various different neighborhoods is that we take them out of the neighborhoods they're assigned to serve in the summertime and have them go patrol Pier Marquette and the beach. That's not community policing. We need to keep those officers building those relationships in the neighborhoods they serve throughout the year. And yes, help them live in our city as well, live in those neighborhoods they serve. We do have a program that gives an extra incentive. They get a higher wage bump if they choose to live in our city. And I know, I don't believe he's here anymore, but I saw Mr. McKee from Sam Products here earlier. He had created a program too to provide additional funding to invite police officers to live not only in the city of Muskegon, but in Muskegon Heights. And so those kind of collaborative public-private ventures that can help in that regard. Now, when you talk about how do we structure our police force, I brought this up last year in terms of, I brought it up before that, but it had renewed emphasis or importance last year when there was this, as you mentioned earlier, Judge Pittman, this pressure for defunding the police. And so defunding isn't appropriate, but we can look at how do we reimagine the way we fund and operate our public safety division. And that includes, as was mentioned earlier by Ms. St. Clair, embedding or collaborating with social workers, with mental health professionals, so that we can look at responding to emergency situations differently and not always having someone show up with a gun. The gun isn't the solution to every problem that you get a call from 911. But also in public safety, we need to be ensuring that we have an adequately staffed and equipped fire department. For too long, we had 6 firefighters for the entire city of Muskegon and 2 per engine. We are now getting higher in staffing in that regard. We're not where it needs to be, and we could look at where it would make sense to send some of our firefighters to calls rather than police. Our firefighters have a better relationship, I believe, with members of the community and police, and that's just perceptions that have happened over time. And so we need to work on adjusting those perceptions. In the meantime, perhaps we can lean on our firefighters, get more of our firefighters, but lean on them as well to help with public safety in our community.
So let's continue to talk about the police. In a city that is, I think Muskegon is about 17% African American.
The city of Muskegon?
Yeah.
It's about 35%.
35%.
It's over 30%, 30 to 35%.
I'm thinking of the county.
Oh, yes.
Yep. Well, we certainly will have 35% representation on the city police department. Not that you have to be perfectly aligned, but what are you going to do about making sure that the policing agency represents the people that they are policing?
That is important. We should have a police force that is reflective of the awesome diversity of our community. Not only a police force, we should have a city hall that's reflective of the awesome diversity of our community, in DPW, in our clerical, in our fire department, in every aspect. Like you said, it doesn't have to be exactly in alignment with the demographics of our city, but we should be working to see it in greater alignment. And while we've made some improvements or successes since I've gotten on the commission 8 years ago, not trying to claim that success on my own, but I have seen the city being more intentional and proactive in trying to hire officers of color onto our police department. And so we need to continue those efforts. We need to be building those relationships with our students in our community and get them interested and excited about opportunities to serve in our police and public safety, and have those potential internships in our police department as well as in our fire department. I had connected our deputy director of public safety, Jay Paulson, with Chauncey at MCEC, Muskegon Community Education Center, and they have launched a new internship program where we have students interning as firefighters and getting Class 1 certification. And so doing that in our fire, doing that in police, to to invite more youth in our community into that service so that our staffing can be more reflective of the community as well. And maybe we also need to be looking at compensation, because that's one of the things I've heard is why it makes it so challenging for us to hire officers of color, because they can find more lucrative opportunities elsewhere. And so let's examine that. Are we competitive in our compensation?
Are there opportunities that you are able to leverage and bring to reality to make summer employment and that kind of thing available for young people? I heard Ms. St. Clair speak, I think, very eloquently about the idea of old co-op programs and things like that that used to exist way back. Some of us in this audience probably had benefit of that over the course of the summer. It taught us a lot. Can we get back to that? If so, tell us how that happens.
So one thing that we've done in just in the past couple of years, and I don't think she's in this room, but she serves on the Citizens District Council, and that's one of the boards that Ms. St. Clair referenced earlier. There's different various boards, commissions, and committees at City Hall that our citizens serve on and help advise us. And Vina Coleman is on there. She lives in the Jackson Hill neighborhood, and she was very adamant, I've served with her a number of years on that, about getting our youth to have employment opportunities. And so we did set aside monies, federal dollars that we received, community development block grant monies, to go towards youth employment. So that's one program, and we'll put more resources behind it. We'll be more proactive in hiring our youth in our community. We always have a great need for seasonal workers at City Hall and in our parks. And so that's where we can connect them. But I don't want to just hire youth to do lawn work or yard maintenance in our parks. I want the youth in our community to have true career exploration with our city. And so also working with Muskegon Community Education Center, and I invited them into our goal setting at the beginning of this year so they could share about a program they're working on, which was City as School. And that's basically getting youth and students jobs now to get a paycheck, to get school credit, to get skills on construction sites, and help them explore what are they interested in doing. Do they want to do roofing? Do they want to do electrical work? Do they want to do siding? You know, what excites them? What interests them? And they can get do that career exploration and then have pathways to apprenticeship thereafter by working with our local trades unions, so that the students and youth in our community not only can get money, get school credits, get skills, but also have a sense of pride and ownership of the development that's happening in their own community.
Mr. Commissioner, there are millions of dollars that are going to come into the city of Muskegon through the American Rescue Plan. Are any of those dollars earmarked for any kind of program for youth?
So we have not spent that money yet, so that remains the possibility of doing so. And that's one of the reasons why this election is so important, because like you said, we've got a lot of money coming into our community, almost $24 million. And so the people of our city need to be communicating to not only those that are running for office now, but the ones that are already serving in office. And I see Commissioner William German here. Thank you for being here and being present in our community. And so reach out to him and the rest of our commission and our city staff to let them know how you feel about your priorities and how that money should be spent. There was a survey that was done. I don't think it was done comprehensively enough. It does not fully reflect our community, and we need to reconsider how we use that to inform spending these dollars. At first, we weren't going to do a survey. I had advocated for a survey and comprehensive community engagement to help guide us how we use that money. And initially, like, well, we can just use this old survey that we did for something else. I'm like, no. That was a narrow focus, and it does not apply to this situation. So fortunately, we did do a survey targeted towards how to spend this money, but we could have done better with that. We could have done a professional survey, and we could have done, gone out into our communities and had designated forms to help inform how to spend that money. But it's interesting, that $24 million, yes, I'd be open to using some of that money for exactly what you were asking about, but it's interesting that right now, when this city is seeing $24 million and having to determine how to spend it, what we're seeing happen in this election, which is lots of money coming from outside of this community spilling to this election. Not only look at the direct contributions from outside developers, outside industrialists, and outside interests that are coming directly to some of the candidates on the November 2nd ballot, but also the shadow money coming from Lansing political operatives that are flooding people's mailboxes with mailers that's talking about Progress Muskegon. Look up some of that group and find out what they're really about. They're attempting to dictate our destiny, and I don't like that, and our residents shouldn't like that, because our future is our own to determine.
Well, why don't we, thank you. Why don't we wrap up here with you identifying 2 pressing issues facing the city and how you intend to address them as mayor?
Certainly. May I have the liberty of touching on another subject before I get into those 2?
Yep.
I just want to touch on, because I thought it was a very good question earlier with regard to school relations. And I am a proud graduate of Muskegon Public Schools, and I think Muskegon Public Schools is so important. A thriving Muskegon Public Schools is so important to the future and success of this city. And I have worked to build relations with our school board members and advocated for the city commission to have joint meetings with our elected officials and school board members, and I would continue to be pushing for that and helping to lead that as the next mayor. And so I'm also proud to say that I'm backed by a majority of our board trustees at Muskegon Public Schools, and I also helped lead in concert with you, Your Honor, last year, the bond election, that's seeing over $100 million invested into our school buildings. And working with others at MCEC on creating new programs and helping them get connected with developers. I personally introduced them to developers to help them implement that city school program. So a thriving school district is incredibly important to me and to our city.
All right, now pick one.
Oh, one
Pressing issue, yeah.
Oh, man. Can I have 3 altogether? Can I touch on 2? Oh, I can't pick which. Oh, because equitable economic development is so important to me. But I feel like I have talked about that in my previous answers, so I'm not going to delve into that right now. But that is incredibly important to me, equitable economic development. A pressing issue is ensuring that we have meaningful community engagement that fosters processes of co-creation, so that people in our community not only feel heard, but they feel respected, and they feel welcomed into governing their own community. Because it's not, a healthy, vibrant democracy is not just about showing up at the ballot box and checking off the box. It's about being informed, and thank you all for being here so that you can be informed voters. That is so important. So it's about being informed and engaged in the process and making sure that those who represent you, or at least claim to represent you, hear from you and bring your wishes and your concerns forward to city government and have them reflected in how we serve you.
Thank you, sir. That brings this session of our conversations this evening to a close. Thank you so much, Commissioner Johnson, for being here, and we wish you well.
Thank you.
Final round of applause for Commissioner Johnson. And what we'll do is, if you'll just keep your seats, we'll get situated for our final panel in the interest of time, so we can get through. So Pam, take care of that. And the panelists for the City of Muskegon Heights City Commission or City Council you would get yourselves into position.
No, she doesn't. Test 1, 2. Okay, folks, we're going to go ahead and get started so we can get these folks and hear what they have to say on behalf of their candidacies for the City of Muskegon Heights City Council. And as with the other panels, we'll start with a 2-minute introduction and whatever you believe is important for people to hear from you from the outset. And then we will go into our questioning. And we will start, I think we'll start on this end instead of that end again. We'll start with Mr. Jenkins. Mr. Jenkins, if you would, please.
Thank you, Honorable Judge Pittman. There we go. Thank you to Honorable Judge Pittman and to Pastor Kai Guy, to PA 103.7, the beat, and to all the staff and to everybody else that are here and also this panel. I'm a proud resident of Muskegon Heights, have been here, born and raised, so I've been here all of my life, and have chosen to stay in Muskegon Heights because I love it. I love living here. I love what the people of Muskegon Heights stand for. We have always been outgoing, and we've always came from below to go above and to rise. And that's where I feel where we're at right now. We are at a place here in Muskegon Heights to where no matter where we were a year ago, I feel that we're trying to move forward in a new direction. We have some challenges before us, but I felt like it was time to do change. I feel like this is the best time. I was busy enough. I mean, I'm definitely scriptural, so I don't preach to people like that, but I told her, I prayed about it and I got it. I said, I'm already busy enough, so what else am I going to be doing? And I always go back, and I always say this no matter who I'm talking to now, even in the scriptures when John and those guys are out and they was fishing. And at the end of the day, that's who he chose, somebody that was already busy, because he knew what their purpose and their intentions were. So that was me. I felt like I was honorable and I was chosen by God to do this because I always told him that at the end of the day, if you need somebody, send me, here I am. So to the city of Muskegon Heights, here I am to represent you, to speak for you, and to continue to do what I've been doing over my lifespan, giving back to my community, engaging with our youth, and making a difference and a change here in Muskegon Heights. That is what I'm really about, is to now, everything that I've grown and done over the years is to collaborate with other municipalities. I think I can be a bridge with the people and make a difference and be a voice for Muskegon Heights. I think that
your
also,
time is expired. Mr.
and
Jenkins.
also work with the schools.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Ms. Fox? There you go.
Well, I'll give you some time back, Ronald. So my name is Tamika Fox. I currently serve on the city council as Mayor Pro Tem along with Mayor Watts. I was born and raised in this community, educated in this community, college in the county of Muskegon, raised my children in this community, currently live, work, and play in this community. I'm strictly about service for this community and communities abroad. I sit on several committees and boards. So again, it's strictly about service for me, not a spotlight. I'm a visionary. I look forward to the revitalization of Muskegon Heights. I look forward to partnering with other municipalities with their leadership to secure equitable and fair access to resources. I'm an agent of change. I'm an agent of diversity and an agent of inclusive endeavors, passionate about the perception of the city, and I'm ready to collaborate as in no competition. That's it. That's me.
Thank you, Ms. Fox. Councilwoman Fox. All right. The stage, whenever you are ready to proceed.
Thank you, 103.7 The Beat, Judge Pittman, Pastor Guy. My name is Ebony Gemini Poet Davis. I'm running for Muskegon Heights City Council because God told me to. I prayed not once, not twice, not three, not four, not five, but about 8 times. Because I was like, kind of like Ronald said, I was doing a lot already. And this was unfamiliar territory. And I'm a firm believer in walking in my purpose. I've been a resident of Muskegon Heights for the last 21 years. The past 11 years, I've been extremely active within my community to where I'm actually known as the voice of the city, the voice for the voiceless, and my passion lies within our youth. I walked away from my job in March of this year to fully walk in my purpose that God showed me. And it's scary, but my passion and the love that I have for the community and everybody that resides in it, not just the ones who meet a certain status quo, and my ability to relate to those that are in the streets, as well as the youth. This is not for a title. I'm running because even though I was born and raised downtown, I saw the pride coming up, and I've always respected the pride that the Heights had. And I know the potential that the Heights has, because look at COVID. Look how many entrepreneurs were birthed at a time when we were supposed to be sitting still. They just need those who are not afraid to stand up and speak on their behalf and give our residents the chance to succeed. I'm Ebony Davis, and I'm about to rebuild the image by rebuilding the village, and it's always collaboration over competition.
Thank you. Mr. Muhammad.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
To the pastor of the church, Pastor Guy, to the beat 103.7, and to the citizens, oh, the beautiful citizens of the city. You are my focus. I moved here about 9 years ago from Denver, Colorado. And I got here, and when I first got here, I gotta be honest, I was a little skeptical. Because Denver, Colorado is a very clean city, it's very progressive, it's on the move. And when I got here, I was like, okay. But then I fell in love with Muskegon Heights and the residents. Most of you probably know me, seen me, probably have talked to me. I'm passionate about family. I have a relatively big family myself. I love children and a beautiful wife that I met here in Muskegon. One of the first persons that I met was Judge Pittman up at the courthouse, and was able to say hi to him. I'm very passionate about education and economics. I mean, of course, we know next to breathing, economics probably is second. So education, I'm passionate about. And coming into Muskegon Heights, I found out that there's a low number of college educated youth and people in the Heights. So for me, that becomes not just a concern, but something that I know I can be involved in continuously. I'm devoted to the elders and to the seniors. I believe in deep, deep respect and honor for our seniors and our elders, and definitely the upliftment of our community, engagement of the citizens, involvement from the citizens, and the love that is needed in this community. So thank you for having me. May God bless each and every one of you, and may God bless Muskegon Heights.
Thank you, sir. Well, let's dive in. Our first question is out of respect to one of our elders here in the city of Muskegon Heights, and he provides this question to ask what economic development steps are you intending to take to deal with issues? Well, let's be focused here. He named a number of them, but let's talk about Mona Lake. It is, most communities would kill for a resource like Mona Lake. What are you intending to do to make that a thriving resource that serves this community going forward? And why don't we start with you, Councilwoman Fox, if you would, please.
So one of the things that we've done already is collaborate with a business entrepreneur himself to open a new business, hopefully in 2022, with a user agreement, which means he is operating on behalf of the city. We know that Mona Lake is a jewel. It is an underutilized jewel. and we need to make sure that we unsurface it. So collaborating with the casino, hopefully that comes, to distribute our very good water, housing developments in that area. I am looking to have events in that area also because it's underutilized. Thanks to Jen Ross for doing all that she does with Juneteenth and other events, but we can do more with that area. So, thanks, Jen. So housing development, having that Brown Sugar Lounge restaurant there, looking at, again, housing collaboration with the casino, looking at utilizing our waterways. In a meeting with a very prominent person in the community, and he said something that struck me very well. He said, drive around and look at other cities with waterways and what they have done and what they are doing. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We need to look at what people are doing and what's successful, and then partner and collaborate and make sure we unsurface our hidden jewel.
Thank you. Ms. Davis, do you want to address that same question, if not necessarily focusing on Motor Lake, but the downtown of Muskegon Heights?
Well, I love Mona Lake. I grew up swimming in Mona Lake. So, yeah, that was when the water was clean. And we also do Poetry After Dark at Mona Lake. And so I've seen the potential there as well when you take the time to clean the lake and lay the ambiance. As far as downtown Muskegon Heights, Gemini the Poet is here tonight, so it's the truth. There's a lot of people sitting on buildings that aren't utilizing buildings. And it's time to start finding them if they're not, or getting them to sell, because there are entrepreneurs that are looking for locations in Muskegon Heights. It was extremely difficult when I did decide to step out on faith and open my business because there wasn't many options. There were buildings, but somebody's holding on to it as a storage facility or whatever they may use it for. It's time to start holding those people that's holding those titles and not doing nothing with them accountable. They're not going to continue to just sit on them, because downtown Muskegon Heights, my uncle had Footer's Clothing on Broadway. There was a clothing store across the street, some real good popcorn across the street, and barbecues in the farmer's market, and we had Mr. Right, you have Flamingos. So there's a lot of potential in downtown Muskegon Heights, but there's so much, people that are friends of friends of friends that allow them to hold on to those buildings and not utilize them. And that's time to change, because again, there's too much potential in that city and too many entrepreneurs that should have a place to set up. And I'm definitely for keeping the Strand Theater, because that's history, and history can't go anywhere.
Thank you. Mr. Muhammad, how do you get the economic development engine churning in the city of Muskegon Heights, and where?
Well, thank you, Your Honor, for the question. The first thing I believe we have to start, we got to clean up our house. And what I mean by that, Your Honor, is that we have to get our community engaged, involved, and understand that the value in terms of bringing in economic development, investors, it starts with us cleaning up our house. And I go also to recognize that many investors are not going to readily come into a city that is divided, that is disunited. But I can honestly say that many investors are ready to come into Muskegon Heights. And I believe that once we get the right type of elected officials and the right type of leadership, that the investors are just going to roll into Muskegon Heights like never before. And that's what I bring to the table, I believe. I believe that we can negotiate with those who want to come into the city. We can partner. We can do everything that we possibly can to invite investors in. Last thing I want to say, is everybody, do you have a copy of the master plan? Who knows what the master plan is? Can you raise your hand? Any? Two? Okay. This is a 25-year study that allows economic development. It adds to prosperity. It has strategies. It has plans. It has everything that is needed right here to build a city. So, Your Honor, when you asked me the question of how we would bring about economic development, I would say I would base it on studies that have already been done, strategies that have already been looked at, plans that have already been put in place. And now the only thing we got to put in place next is agreement upon elected officials, particularly the council, so that we can move this city forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins, I give you a stab at that same question.
Okay, couple things that I thought about, and I'm not going to repeat so many things that they've already said because it's very important. But Mona Lake is definitely one of our pride and joys. And opening up the channel, there's so many people that want to come here and to do many things up on that our lake. That's our pride and joy. We talked about the casino, we talked about different things, and it's just so many avenues that we can do there. And opening up those hotels down there. But one of the things, I am just a sports person as well. So not only do you open that up to your businesses and things down there, we have a unique being down there. When we did the Juneteenth thing down there and the events down there, when I looked over and I saw all the greenery out there and the highways there, you know how many people that would love just to come here and just do events at the lake? I mean, there are some things that has to be changed, true enough, but people will love just to stop off the highway and just have and enjoy different events. So I think that's going to be very important. Downtown Muskegon Heights, I continue to say, you know, we're moving in the 21st century. I don't say continue to try to be like we were in the 70s and 80s. I don't say that because that's just not the way it is. But the 21st century is looking at Broadway for what it can be. Right. Really looking at Broadway, and if you're going to the bigger cities, you know what I'm talking about. You're actually coming to businesses. You're coming and you're seeing people out on the streets socializing and actually walking from one business location to the next. That's where we got to go. We can't go backwards. We got to be moving forward. So
the question is how do we get there? I don't think anybody in this room disagrees that we want to see people up and down Broadway. We want people to be able to go from shop to place to place. How do we get there?
We have to get there by collaborating right now. That's the biggest point, collaborating. We have to now start working together with other municipalities and not reinventing the wheel. It's already there, period.
All right. Thank you. Before I go any further, Ms. Davis, if you are elected, will you return to this forum in 4 years to speak?
I'm every year anyway, so it don't even take for me to come back as an elected official, but I'll definitely be back anytime I'm given the invite.
That's a yes.
Yes, that's a yes, yes, yes.
Mr. Muhammad, same question.
Absolutely, Your Honor. And it actually gives me a vision that I can look forward to. Because for me, this is just the first step of many steps that we are planning on taking in the city of Muskegon Heights. You know, we are here in this beautiful church, and it says where there is no vision, the people will perish. And so I absolutely look forward to an emphatically yes to come back, not only in 4 years, but in 8 years. If not 8 years, then in 12 years, Your Honor, because this is going to take it's taken a long time for this city to get into the condition that it is. And it's gonna take some effort and some nitty-gritty work to get it back up to where it belongs. So in short, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins, same question.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Fox.
If that was in short, this is short, yes.
All right. Well, let's go here. Certainly in the city of Muskegon Heights, the relationship between the city and the city schools deserves some attention. What is your plan going forward, Mr. Muhammad, in attempting to address that relationship?
You know, I got a call, Your Honor, from a brother of mine. He lives in Arizona now. He's actually the father of the superintendent, Dr. Thompson. And he said, Brother Julius, you have to call my daughter. So I immediately got on the phone and I met with her to get her ideas and to prick her brain and to see what direction she desires for the school system. I went and I met with the principal of the school, and I met with many of the teachers as well. Engagement, engagement, engagement. In bringing the students out of the school into the community, inviting them into City Hall, taking our professionals into the school so that they can engage with the students, taking the business professionals in Muskegon Heights and letting them engage with the students. The principal told me, you can take them on a field trip anytime you like, Mr. Muhammad, just let me know. So when it comes to school and education and really involving the students within the productivity of our society is an absolute must. A lot of problems that we see in our community today stems from our failure to address those issues 5 and 10 years ago. So if we can address them now, think 5 or 10 years from now, once again, we'll have a thriving and productive Muskegon Heights.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins.
Our youth are our future. That is plain and simple. One of the things I have the privilege of being a former school board member, being a PTA president, still currently working with the Optimist Club of Muskegon Heights, and working with different other groups out there that's really focused on our children. One of the things that I talked about is to get our city and our schools really just seeing eye to eye. And the part that we got to go is go back to where it started at in the past, because there's no way that we're going to move forward if everything that we're doing it on the same day. So there's no way as leaders, if the school is meeting on Mondays and the city council is meeting on Mondays at the same time. So I've also had a chance to speak with school leaders and council members and potential council members about being able to collaborate, come together on one page and say, how can we change the mindset of what's been happening for years? We have to address really what's was before us. And that is the biggest point, is that the state and the city and the schools, if we don't come together, well, the city can actually help change some of the things that's happening in the schools. So I really want to meet with the schools and hopefully try to get some of these actual finances that's out there, the debt, get some of those things, what I want to say is forgiven. Those are things that we can work together with. I just say we just got to do a better job of collaborating, period.
Thank you. Councilwoman Fox.
Thank you. I'm from the school system, Lindbergh, middle school, high school, so done it all. And so were my parents. So looking at the school system and the relationship with the city is not connecting, as Mr. Jenkins said. So it needs to be a collaboration there. So I'm just gonna go down my bullet points. So rebuild the school board so that the school board has the best interest of the students and parents in mind. The relationship between the council and the school needs to be revisited. We need to show up when there are meetings, when there are forums, when there are conversations about our students and conversations about funding and budgets. We need to show up and be participating in those. We need to engage, re-engage the students and the parents, because if the parents aren't engaged, they're not going to get the students engaged, right? Reintroduce, and I love that she said co-op programs in the school systems. If we need jobs, if we need to reinstitute that, I was a part of the co-op system at 14. You get your little paperwork and you got your job. We know that we want the city of Muskegon Heights to be a live, work, and play community. And in order to live, work, and play, we have to make sure that that city has education as one of its key focuses for people to move and engage in the city. Again, collaborate and then look at grants and funding to curb any debt that we have for that school system.
Thank you. Ms. Davis?
For me, with the school system, this past summer, I brought a poetry workshop with the Diatribe to Muskegon Heights. And I chose Muskegon Heights because to me, it was always the school system that was forgotten or put on the back burner. One thing I think we need to do is stand behind our students in all things, not just sports. They had a robotics, I believe, was it robotics or STEM? And they didn't get the support that they should have got. Our kids are looking for consistency. They're looking for people that's going to support them, not just when it's something they can benefit from getting a picture because they're hugging the kids for them. I talk to the kids often, and that's the biggest thing they're missing. And we have to also get that relationship back with the parents, because the parents don't feel like the school or the city is communicating with them, and they're finding things out last minute or not aware of certain things. So it's that communication piece. For anything to be successful, you got to communicate. So we got to bridge that gap of communication and show up for our kids. Concerts, coordinations. I'm jealous because we didn't get those downtown. But the different events, like how I see us show up for homecoming weekend, that's how we have to show up for our kids. Because
But the question though is, what role does your city council play in creating the relationships that I think we all would want to see in a school district that is having the difficulty that the city of Muskegon Heights School District is having?
They have to lead by example. They have to be present. They have to show that they care. And not just when they want votes. So bottom line, city council has to be present for our kids at all times, for all events. If they need to talk, city council, they should be able to come talk to their city council members. Because our kids are dealing with deaths of their friends. And with us being on the board and in charge of the city, we can't address those issues if we're not talking to the people it's affecting. So be involved, be present.
All right, thank you. Mr. Jenkins, what do you see as a strength of the city of Muskegon Heights, and how can you, as a councilman, leverage that strength to the benefit of the city of Muskegon Heights?
The strength of Muskegon Heights is its people. I truly believe that upon educating, again, collaborating, talking, giving people opportunity to hear, giving people opportunity to speak, and giving people opportunities to be a part. And that's what I am generally inside. I am a coach. And so I would try to work, and I work with people, I encourage people, I motivate people. So with that, I think that part of Muskegon Heights, again, understanding where that love is and find out that that love isn't really lost. and bring that back to the top. And that's that love that we need to have in our city of Muskegon Heights.
Thank you. Councilwoman?
So I just want to be clear on the question, what are the strengths of the city of
Yeah,
Muskegon?
what do you see as a strength of the city of Muskegon Heights, and how do you leverage that to the benefit of people of the city of Muskegon Heights?
So again, to Mr. Jenkins' point, it's the people, number one, in the city of Muskegon Heights. It's the diversity of Muskegon Heights. So it's diverse in economics, it's diverse in generations. The pride of Muskegon Heights, no one can compete, and yes, no one can compete with the city of Muskegon Heights and their pride. It's collaborative. When it comes down to doing something for the city of Muskegon Heights, we collaborate. And this was said in a different form, but it's the love that we have in the city of Muskegon Heights. Everyone knows everyone pretty much in the city. So to get that in the city and to collaborate, it's just that generational knowledge in the city. It's the pride that the city has, and that's how we're going to leverage moving the city forward. Because I'm sure all the people in the city want to see that this city thrive again to not only what it was, but what it can be. And we're doers.
All right, Ms. Davis.
A strength I see in the Heights is they always rise against the odds. They rise against the odds. No matter what's stacked against them, they always refuse to fold, refuse to give up. Their tenacity is admirable. And how I think we can bring that back is by getting that trust. Right now, trust is missing with the council and the citizens. If we get that trust back with the citizens and they have that accessibility and they see transparency, they see somebody being held accountable when they don't do certain things, that's how we're going to get that leverage.
Thank you. Mr. Muhammad.
Yes, just echoing what the other candidates have stated, it is the people. The strength has become weak. And the weakness in the community is disconnected. And that disconnect from City Hall all the way down to the last house on the block, which the fortunate thing for myself is, like I said, I've probably talked to most of you and many of the citizens in Muskegon Heights, because that strength of the uniqueness of its size also gives us a tremendous manageable opportunity. But we have to get that strength back. And the way to get that strength back, Your Honor, is to engage and get the citizens involved, get them participating, get them back to loving that in which they disconnected with. The citizens are dissatisfied right now. And so if we want strength again, then we definitely need right individuals to bring about that inspiration, that motivation, and that drive, which I believe is myself, and those who are wanting and desirous to do the right thing. Then we can really recognize that tremendous strength of Muskegon Heights. It's there, but it's dormant. And that's what we're here to do, is bring back the life and bring a torchlight to Muskegon Heights so that we in fact can reach new heights.
Thank you. All right, so listen, let me challenge you all a little bit. The challenge here is that I don't think there's anybody here who would disagree that to some degree, regardless of what that degree is, this city council has majored in the minors over some points in time in the near past. You've looked at a whole lot of things that really didn't count for a whole lot. Spent a whole lot of time talking and debating and dividing and taking on perspectives that really don't move the needle for anybody over in East Park Manor or over on the west side or on Rear Street where I grew up. They could care less about some of the things that have become very, very important to this city council. My question and the challenge to you is, what do you do to ensure that the atmosphere, the professionalism, the focus, the intentionalism of being leaders of the city of Muskegon Heights, instead of getting caught up in the minutia of being a person who's in the city of Muskegon Heights? Unfortunately, City Councilwoman Fox, it's on you.
So I am fairly new to council, almost 2 years in. And one of the things that I saw when I came, I just sat and looked and watched and was amazed at the finger pointing and the blame game. And anyone who knows me, I don't really sugarcoat anything. It's pointing fingers, the blame game. You did, we did. So what you have to do is have some decorum. What you have to do is ask questions and debate, and whatever arguments or disagreements or agree to disagree happens with the city manager or mayor or council prior to getting in front of your citizens so that you can agree to disagree the correct way, professionally. You need to look at the information that's before you before the meeting. You need to look at the agenda. The agenda is to talk about the business of the city. Agree to the agenda to talk about the business of the city. If you don't agree to what's on the agenda, you amend it and move on. You don't take time, an hour, to argue the point that it says the instead of the, I don't know. So integrity, open the line of trust. And when I say trust, when someone asks you a question, if you don't know the answer, say, you know what, I don't know the answer right now, but let me find out and get back to you, and get back to them. Whether it is saying, I'm going to have the city manager get back to you and then circle back around to ensure that he or she, depending on the time, gets back to that individual. If it's by email, if it's just touching bases with the person while you are in a council meeting. It's to make sure that the community knows that coming to council and city hall is not going to the principal's office, or it's not a negative atmosphere. It is now, and I'm just going to be frank about it. I mean, when you are on a Zoom meeting and you hear such things as shut up, or you hear such things as don't talk to me, or don't say that to me, it's rude. And who wants to sit on a meeting for 3 hours and be not entertained by that? It's messy. It's a bunch of mess. So there's a lot of improvements that can be done. I heard of, trainings, people aren't trained. Well, there's a lot of trainings that happen, and whether we're all in it together or not, we are leaders of the community. We are elected to lead, and there are some things that you have to do and some sacrifices you have to take in that role. Right.
Thank you very much. Ms. Davis.
The biggest thing for me would be respect. I think you have some home training. Like, in order to get respect, you have to give respect, and remember what you're doing it for and who you're doing it for. You're doing it for the city, and I agree with Councilwoman Fox. There's been numerous times that I've watched those meetings and gotten migraines, because at what point was it about the citizens? All I heard was arguing for 3.5 hours. And it's a way to, as adults, when you agree to take this seat, you're not going to always agree with everybody. You don't always agree with your employer, but you go to work and do your job and you're respectful. And so you got to have that same mindset when you sit at that table. And like you say, come prepared. You're not going to go to work and tell them, well, I didn't look at your email that told me to be here 2 hours ago, so next. No, that's not how it works. Again, it's just having respect for those that are sitting next to you. I don't have to like what you say, but I can respect you as long as you're respecting me.
Mr. Mahoney.
Thank you, Your Honor. Appearance, I guess you'd say aesthetics. The biggest problem to me is the examples that are being set forth before the community. If the community sees us in city council or as elected officials in flip-flops, t-shirts, unkept, unprofessional, nearly to a degree, it would almost cross the line of being uneducated. I don't mean to be offensive to no one, but if the community sees disunited elected officials and leadership, then there's no reason why we've got a disconnected, disunited community. Everybody's going in different directions to answer the question. And so the community is crying out right now. They're crying out right now for unity. The community is crying out right now for progress. The community is crying out right now, Your Honor, to bring back progressive activity within the Heights. But when you see it in City Hall, it permeates throughout the community. So I come before you all today, and for those who are listening on the radio, that I'm coming here, and I just got here 9 years ago, which is not new, but as everybody else has stated, they've grown up here, they've lived here, there's a sentiment of cronyism, of nepotism, of buddy, of group activity that does not mean good for the city. I am not a part of that. I am part of being professional. I am part of being on time. I mean, the way you see me dressed today is probably the way you see me every day. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but I believe in order. I believe in discipline. I believe in respect. And that's one thing that I will demand as your next elected city councilman.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins.
I think as council people, we have to understand the integrity in our character, because even if it's not live, even if it's not seen on social media, our children see it and our children hear it. And so our integrity means a lot. I mean, we are supposed to show that God-given spirit no matter where we are. In other words, go back to the old school mentality, treat others the way you want to be treated. We're not going to always agree, and we have to learn how to agree to disagree. We have to be prepared, and I think that's where a lot of things that we've seen in our meetings, and it's been a disappointment, it's been shameful, is because people have come in unprepared. And when you're unprepared, you put on that type of show and you're defensive. And so one of the things that we have to do is be able to go over our materials so that when we come up, we've already asked our questions before we get before the public. Because at the end of the day, when we're in that meeting, it is to give the public, it is to give the citizens an opportunity to understand what's really going on. We have already understood as council people before we get out into that public meeting what direction we're going in. And anything otherwise, we're showing discourse. We're showing division. We're not there to prove a point. We're one voice. But together, we work together to move forward. And that's what we have to be as council people. And that's where the change is going to come. We say we want change. We say we want a different city. We say we want to move. We have to vote differently. And we have to change the council outside of this box.
That's an endorsement. Thank you. Well, we should probably bring this to a close with each of you, as we've done with the others. Identify what you believe are two pressing issues in the city and the means by which you would intend to address them from your seat as a council person. Ms. Davis, I'll let you begin. 2 minutes.
Two issues that I see, correct, is, again, let's go back to trust. I see a lot of distrust from the citizens because they've lost hope, they've lost faith in the city government. How I plan on bringing that back is letting my actions do the talking instead of my words, because they're tired of being talked to death. Another thing is standing behind our youth. Anybody who knows me knows I'm extremely passionate about our youth. And sorry, not sorry, but we need to stand behind Pathfinders. That's a jewel in our community. It's time for us to stand behind Ruth the Hunter and support those kids. And that right there could be the game changer, because I've been to their events and saw kids in tears because the community didn't show up to support the way that they show up for the Boys and Girls Club across the street. So November 2nd, it's going to ask y'all to vote for somebody who truly cares for this city and who's going to continue, whether I'm elected or not, doing what I've been doing for the last 11 years. November 2nd, we need you guys to vote for change. Keep Fox. And change too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Davis. Mr. Muhammad.
Could you ask the question again, Your Honor?
Absolutely. Identify two issues that you believe are the most pressing as it relates to the city of Muskegon Heights and how you would intend to address them from your seat as a city councilman.
Thank you, Your Honor. One of the big problems in Muskegon Heights, of course, is I guess you'd call it the crime, the illegal drug distribution. And from that, you get a lot that comes from that. What I mean by that is you get a lot of trash in the streets, and because there's just no respect in the streets. I've talked to seniors, Your Honor, and they're afraid to come out of their homes. And it troubles me greatly that our seniors are afraid to drive down the street because young men and women are doing 50, 60 miles per hour on residential streets. Illegal drugs are being sold in the open market. So I tell the young men, as I'm in the streets all the time, and I'm talking to everybody, the young, the old, the men, the women, the professional class, the unprofessional class. So the solution to that is community. I'm calling on you. We have to be responsible community citizens everywhere. I'm calling on those who are retired. I told Mr. Thornton and all of my wonderful elders and seniors that advise me and counsel me, Your Honor, I call them and I say, listen, I'm gonna have to bring you out of retirement because we need you in the streets. I'm calling on the churches. These are my solutions, and all the pastors and members of the church. I'm asking you to come out of the church and let's get back into the streets and let's deal with the situation that is going on in our community. I'm going to ask the council members, Your Honor, to come up out of City Hall
The time is up, Mr. Muhammad.
All right. I'm sorry for the long answer.
No.
I've done that before, and I apologize.
No, you were allotted 2 minutes, and you used your 2 minutes.
I used my 2 minutes. I yield. I have to yield.
There's no apology necessary. Thank you, Mr. Muhammad. Mr. Jenkins.
I like the passion of everybody up here, but a couple things that we haven't talked about was, we talked about what we say the truly affordable housing for everyone. We haven't talked about that. We haven't talked about making sure that we have transparency across the board. Those are two pressing issues of Muskegon Heights, because we got 3,700 homes that's really balancing out and taking care of this entire city. We can't continue to move forward like that. We have to do something about it. We cannot be in open meetings and vote down building homes. We have to build. We have to bring things to the forefront and bring business owners in. We can't have business owners in the open meetings, and you're talking about them in open meetings because you don't know who business owners are. So again, being able to understand what is our issue. We have income tax and property tax. That's how we survive. And without increasing those, we're not going to move forward. So everything everyone said up here is very important. But we have to understand, if we keep empty lots and we don't put housing and we don't move forward with businesses and build our taxes, we're not going to have a city. We own very little. So we have to give ownership back to our citizens.
Thank you. Councilwoman Fox.
Well, Mr. Jenkins covered the housing. It was on my list. The one thing that we haven't talked about, and I'm going to be pretty prescriptive with it, is the budget. We do understand that the city of Muskegon Heights is operating on a very tight budget. If you want to use tight, you can use tight. But we need to review that budget and understand where those monies are being allocated and look at those line items and understand those line items as well. And also understand council members and administration who have made those decisions over the last 15 to 20 years. And that's how we need to understand how we've gotten to where we are today. So we need to look at that. We also need to look at that master plan that Mr. Muhammad talked about. It's on the city's website. If you go on the city's website, you can look at the master plan. It's something that's on there, and we look at it and we review it. It's a 5-year plan. I think the last time it was reviewed was in 2018. And that gives us very prescriptive things that we need to do as a city to move the city forward as far as revenue generating ideas. Safety and security, I'll talk about that just a little bit. There's the Reserve Officer Program I want to highlight. It is an opportunity to dig into our own community and bring young men and women into our fold and train them, send them to the academy, fund that, and then they have to volunteer hours. I think it's 25 hours per month to volunteer for our community for 3 years. So they can continue to work, but if they have a side job at a factory or whatever, but they still owe us those community hours. And then when a position opens up, we can then move them into that position. Even if they take a position in another municipality or sheriff's office, they still owe us those community hours. Therefore, we have extra manpower to utilize when we talk about safety. We have grants to install cameras that we have the funding for. And I just want to say this, we have one of our homegrown gentlemen is now the chief of police, and he is reinstituting community policing. And that is something that we should have started before. We have it now. Let's continue to support him in his efforts and make sure that this city continues to move on the path that he is looking for, and we get back to safety.
All right. Thank you, Councilwoman. Well, thank you all. We really appreciate the comments and the passion that you all bring to your candidacies here. The organizers of this event made me aware, and I want to make you all aware that candidate Oaks is under the weather. And candidate and incumbent Ms. McLaughlin, and we pray for their family. They had a death within the last day or so. Alfred, for those who may be aware, Alfred McLaughlin passed away, and we have no explanation regarding City Councilman Williams not being here. Just want to make that record clear. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, can we also welcome PA and 103.7 The Beat back home to Muskegon Heights where they should have been anyway? Because they're on Glade Street now. They're back home.
Welcome home. All right, with that, one final round of applause for this wonderful panel. And that brings these proceedings to a close. Thank you all so much for your attendance, for your time, and your attention.
Thank you, Pastor Guy, for opening your doors.
Pastor Guy, thank you so much. Before we leave, I just wanted to say regarding Pastor Guy, as before we leave, and you would stop your communications for just a moment. Before we leave, we want to acknowledge the fact that this church is made available for virtually any and every positive activity that goes on here, not only for the city of Muskegon Heights, but for the city of Muskegon. And we appreciate you making this available to us, Pastor Guy, so much. Thank you.
Judge Pittman, Judge Pittman, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Because I really want to say this, because you're always a tiger.
Absolutely.
No matter where you go, you're a tiger.
79.
Listen, Judge Pittman spoke at our graduation many years ago, but you've always been the same, and you have done a great job to all the candidates all the way across tonight. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.